You don't need 50 ingredients to eat this way. You need about 15, used well, again and again. This is the practical episode, the one where philosophy becomes a shopping list. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what belongs in a macrobiotic pantry and why each item earned its place. Start here. Episode 4 of 4. The Pantry. Part 1. The grains and beans that anchor every meal. Start with the whole grains from episode 3. Brown rice is the anchor, the grain that appears most often in macrobiotic cooking, valued for its balance and its slow, steady energy release. Around it, rotate barley for its cooling quality in warmer months, millet for its gentle, warming sweetness, and rolled oats for an easy, grounding breakfast. Why whole grains matter. For most of human history, grains weren't eaten stripped of their fiber. They were eaten whole. The bran carried fiber, the germ carried vitamins, minerals, and healthy fats, and the endosperm supplied the starch that fueled daily life. Modern refining changed that equation. White rice and white flour remove the bran and germ almost entirely. What's left is primarily starch, easy to digest, but also much quicker to raise blood glucose. Whole grains behave differently. The fiber slows digestion. The resistant starch feeds beneficial gut bacteria. The magnesium supports hundreds of enzymatic reactions throughout the body, including energy production and muscle function. Brown rice also provides manganese, selenium, and B vitamins that are largely lost during refining. Large population studies consistently associate higher whole grain intake with lower risks of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and premature mortality. No single food is a miracle, but replacing refined grains with whole grains is one of the dietary changes supported most consistently across nutrition research. Macrobiotics didn't discover this through laboratories. It arrived at the same conclusion through observation, long before nutrition science could explain why. Alongside the grains sit the beans. Aduki beans are the macrobiotic staple bean, small, dark red, associated with kidney support. Chickpeas and lentils round out the protein foundation, easy to keep stocked dry and simple to prepare. Why beans deserve their reputation. Beans are sometimes treated as poor man's food. Nutritionally, they're closer to a superfood. They're naturally rich in protein, fiber, folate, potassium, magnesium, and slow-digesting carbohydrates that provide remarkably steady energy. Unlike highly processed protein products, beans arrive as complete packages, bringing the nutrients that help the body actually use that protein effectively. One reason researchers pay so much attention to legumes is their effect on metabolic health. Regular bean consumption has been associated with improved blood sugar regulation, lower LDL cholesterol, and greater feelings of fullness after meals. People often worry about digestion. Ironically, many digestive complaints disappear once the gut adapts to eating beans regularly. Starting with smaller portions, soaking overnight and cooking with kombu or ginger dramatically improves digestibility. In macrobiotic cooking, beans aren't an occasional side dish. They're part of the daily rhythm. A small serving every day often works better than a huge serving once a week. Shifu tip. Grains and beans are cooked as a pair for a reason beyond flavor. Together, they form a complete amino acid profile, which is exactly why traditional plant-based cultures the world over paired a grain with a legume, rice and beans, wheat and lentils, corn and beans. Macrobiotics inherited this logic rather than inventing it. The blue zone connection. One reason this pairing appears again and again across cultures is simple, and it works. The Okinawans paired sweet potatoes with soy. Mediterranean cultures paired wheat with chickpeas and lentils. Central America paired corn with beans. India paired rice with dal. Different continents, different climates. The same nutritional logic emerging independently. Today, researchers studying long-lived populations, often called blue zones, continue to find legumes appearing almost every day on the plate. They're inexpensive, filling, environmentally sustainable, and remarkably nutrient-dense. Sometimes longevity isn't about discovering exotic ingredients. It's about recognizing patterns that humanity has quietly repeated for centuries. Part 2. The ferments and sea vegetables that do the heavy lifting. This is the layer that makes macrobiotic food taste like something, and it's also the layer doing most of the nutritional work. Miso, fermented soybean paste, is the backbone. Used in soup, dressings, and sauces, it supplies live cultures for gut health and a depth of flavor that salt alone can't provide. Tamari or shoyu, naturally fermented soy sauces, do the same seasoning job with more complexity than table salt. Umeboshi, pickled sour plum, is the pantry's reset button, used in small amounts to support digestion and settle the stomach. Why fermentation changes everything. Fermentation is one of humanity's oldest food technologies. Long before refrigeration existed, people discovered that carefully controlled fermentation didn't simply preserve food, it transformed it. Microorganisms partially break down proteins and carbohydrates, making many foods easier to digest. They also produce compounds that contribute the deep, savory flavor the Japanese call umami. Miso is a perfect example. Depending on how long it's fermented, its flavor becomes increasingly complex while developing enzymes and beneficial compounds. Traditional macrobiotic cooking avoids boiling miso aggressively because excessive heat can reduce some of these living components. Instead, it's stirred into soup near the end of cooking. It's worth remembering that fermented foods aren't unique to Japan. India has idli and dosa batter. Korea has kimchi. Europe has sauerkraut. The Middle East has fermented yogurt. Every traditional food culture seems to have discovered that microbes, when properly managed, become partners in nutrition. Modern microbiome research is beginning to explain what traditional kitchens already knew intuitively. Then the sea vegetables, kombu, simmered into grains and beans to soften them and add minerals. Nori, wrapped around rice. Wakame, softened into soup. These three alone supply a mineral density that almost no other food group can match. Why sea vegetables are different. Plants grown on land obtain nutrients from soil. Sea vegetables obtain theirs from the ocean. That difference matters. Kombu, wakame, and nori accumulate minerals that are difficult to obtain consistently elsewhere, including iodine, calcium, magnesium, and trace elements. Iodine is especially important because it's essential for normal thyroid hormone production, which influences metabolism throughout the body. At the same time, more isn't always better. Sea vegetables are used in macrobiotic cooking in surprisingly small amounts. Not giant salads every day, but modest additions that quietly enrich meals over time. Think of them as seasonings with nutritional benefits rather than vegetables filling half the plate. This reflects one of macrobiotics' recurring themes. Small, consistent habits usually outperform dramatic interventions. This ferment and sea vegetable layer is where most of the medicine in macrobiotic food actually lives. Shifu tip. Kombu isn't only a flavor ingredient. When simmered with beans, its natural glutamates soften the beans' tough skins and shorten cooking time, while contributing iodine and trace minerals that are almost absent from a standard modern diet. One ingredient, 3 jobs. Part 3. The everyday extras that pull every dish together. The last layer is small in quantity but constant in use. Sesame, as oil for cooking and as seeds, often ground into gomashio, a simple sesame and sea salt condiment sprinkled over grains. Ginger and scallion for warming, circulation-supporting flavor in almost every savory dish. Brown rice vinegar for the acidity that balances a plate, the way lemon or wine vinegar does elsewhere. Why sesame appears everywhere. If brown rice provides stability, sesame provides richness. Sesame seeds contain healthy, unsaturated fats, calcium, iron, zinc, and lignans, plant compounds currently being studied for their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Grinding the seeds is important. Whole sesame often passes through the digestive system largely intact, but lightly crushing or grinding them makes more of their nutrients available. That's why gomashio became such a staple. A small sprinkle transforms a bowl of rice from something plain into something deeply satisfying, while adding texture, aroma, and nutrition all at once. Sometimes flavor isn't an indulgence, it's what makes healthy eating sustainable. The pantry philosophy. What surprises many people about macrobiotic cooking isn't what's included, it's what's absent. There are no expensive powders, no miracle supplements, no proprietary shakes, no monthly subscription boxes. Just ingredients that most traditional kitchens would recognize immediately. This simplicity has practical advantages. Once these staples are in your cupboard, grocery shopping becomes easier because you're mostly replenishing fresh vegetables and fruit. Meal planning becomes easier because every ingredient works with almost every other ingredient. Food waste decreases because the same pantry appears across breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Financially, it's surprisingly accessible too. Brown rice, beans, and oats remain among the least expensive nutrient-dense foods available almost anywhere in the world. Healthy eating often carries a reputation for being expensive. Sometimes it's the processed version of health that's expensive. The traditional version usually isn't. The goal of a macrobiotic pantry isn't perfection. It's reliability. You open the cupboard and know that almost everything inside can contribute to a nourishing meal. That kind of consistency changes eating habits far more effectively than motivation ever will. That's the list. Grains, beans, ferments, sea vegetables, and the everyday extras. It's 15 ingredients, and from them, an almost unlimited range of meals. You don't need to buy all 15 today. Start with brown rice, 1 bean, 1 miso, and kombu. Everything else builds from there. To summarize, 4 episodes ago, you started with a single idea. Your body speaks before it breaks. Since then, you've learned the 5 organs that do the speaking, the language of yin, yang, and the seasons that food uses to answer. And now, the exact ingredients that put it all into practice. That's the full foundation. Everything else on this channel builds from here. Episode 1. Your body speaks before it breaks. Episode 2. The 5 organs that run your life. Episode 3. Food is information. Episode 4. The Macrobiotic Pantry. You are here. Download the free infographic from the description. The 15-ingredient Macrobiotic Pantry. Macrobiotics isn't built around rare foods. It's built around relationships. The relationship between grain and bean. Between season and climate. Between digestion and energy. Between small daily choices and long-term health. The pantry you've seen today isn't simply a shopping list. It's a system. Once you understand the system, every future recipe makes sense because every ingredient already has a purpose. And that's exactly where this channel goes next. Next stop, the S.O.F series, all 10 episodes. Watch each one starting with a symptom you recognize and mapping it straight back to the organ and the food that answers it. Then, the Gut Reset series and the Longevity Kitchen series. The S.O.F series, 10 episodes, takes real-world symptoms. Fatigue, bloating, anxiety, poor sleep, skin issues, low immunity, and traces each one back through the organs, then into the foods that can help support recovery alongside a healthy lifestyle. Then, the Gut Reset series and the Longevity Kitchen series. So if you're ready to stop chasing nutrition trends and start understanding food at a deeper level, subscribe to Thrive Shifu. Because once you know the language of food, every meal becomes an opportunity to heal, not perfectly, but consistently. Subscribe to Thrive Shifu and heal naturally, the macrobiotic way. I'll see you there.